Did you know Super Awesome Mix has an app? Go to the Apple App Store today and download Super Awesome Mix. It's free. You could start creating and sending your own digital mixtapes in just a few clicks. Also, there's links to our Instagram account and a link where you can follow your favorite podcast. Speaking of which, welcome back to another Super Awesome Mix. My name is Matt Sidholm, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Super Awesome Mix, Samer Abu Salbi. Samer, how we doing this week?
I'm doing real well. I'm excited for now our monthly series of covering new music. This is honestly one of my, you know what, I'm going to say it's one of my favorites, but as we've discussed, every mix is one of my favorites. I like them all.
But this is one of our favorites. We talk about this every time we do a new music mix, and I think last year we did it just a couple of times, then we moved it up to quarterly. Now we're just like, there's so much new music that comes out that we're like, we could do this monthly and never run out of content. So yeah, now once a month you could come back and get a new music mix. So I'm really excited about this going forward.
Yeah, me too. It's been fun, and I was reflecting on my picks this round where they're very pop heavy, and it's kind of funny because I think that's cool. Personally speaking, like I think it's fun that some I lean in on pop and I kind of go through that. Others I was more maybe into rock music and leaning in on that. So even just from a personal standpoint, it's been interesting to see how my own music tastes change throughout the year. I wonder if there's a pattern there I can look back on, of like different seasons lend me towards different genres, or if it's just all random.
You see, and what immediately came to my mind is kind of what's available, because I found myself listening to a lot more pop stuff just based on what was new in October. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting. So I wonder if those releases are based on seasons. That would be interesting.
Yeah, or
too.
like award seasons too, because I know, like, for example, Oscar films, right, like tend to wait right before the Oscars.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
Or maybe next month it'll just be a lot of Christmas stuff, and it's really not as complicated as we make it.
Mariah Carey's coming for us all.
All right, well, let's get into this month's new music mix. We're going to start off with your pick, and I mean, it seems like this is everyone's pick right now, like everything that she does, but you picked Mastermind by Taylor Swift.
Yeah, again, we talk a lot about the Super Awesome Mix bump, and the fact that I just think more people need to be listening to her. I mean, she's the first artist ever to have literally all 10 on the top 10 for Billboard. But she can do better. She can always do better. So here we are, propping up Taylor Swift.
Has anyone ever occupied the top 11 spot?
Right?
I mean, there's got to be a new threshold for Taylor to conquer, right?
Exactly. So that's, I mean, she's having such an amazing release with this album. It's record breaking in more ways than one. It's really good. I mean, I've listened to it a number of times now, start to finish. And I know our other co-host on the show, What Are You Listening To with Jen Toller? She's absolutely a Taylor fan, and she's been listening to it nonstop. But of all the songs that I go back to, this is probably my number one on the album. I just love how the song flows. I love the lyrics. I think it's kind of like peak Taylor Swift, at least peak like pop Taylor Swift. It's airy, it's kind of hopeful, it's exciting. It's literally a song about her kind of being a mastermind and in relation to like putting together a relationship. Like she saw someone, she liked him, she decided like, okay, you're going to be mine. And then of course the end is kind of funny in that he's like, yeah, I knew that was happening all along. And I guess that's why they're perfect for each other. So it's like a cute song in that regard, but I just think it's a really easy one to listen to on repeat.
Yeah, I say this all the time, like, I'm not the demo for Taylor Swift, right? Like, it's, she's not writing songs for me, but I still admire her as a songwriter. And, you and Jen just, could not stop talking about this album. And I finally sat down and listened to it. And I was like, you know what? They're right. Like, this is really good. Like, just, it sounds good. But I'm always just blown away by how great a songwriter she is and how her turn of phrase is just so well done. And this song is a great example of that. And I also, with this one in particular, I could hear just I don't know, 52 different dance remixes being done of this one,
Sure.
like pretty easily. So you're going to hear this in the club, I think, as well. But yeah, I mean, just a great pick. But I think you could have picked a number of songs from this album that I was like, man, that's really good. That's really good. That's really well done. So not that she needs the praise from me. Everybody loves her. But, as someone who admittedly is not in the demographic, I do admire the way she's able to put together a song. It's really impressive.
Awesome. All right, well, let's go to your first pick, track 2 on the mix, and it is Mountain Song by Flatland Cavalry.
Okay, so Samra, my first question, I predicted you would not care for this song. So I'm just going to come out and ask, did you like this song?
I actually really did like it. I think it's more folksy than country, which is
Yes.
maybe why I liked it. I kind of tend to lean that way on that spectrum, So,
So Flatland Cavalry, they have a new album out, and I really enjoyed the whole thing. But there were definitely a few tracks on there that were very country sounding. That I'm like, ooh, Sammer's he's gonna hate this, right? Maybe I was just in that mode, but I was like, I want to pick a song from this, so I picked this one. I think it's the lead track, and I just thought it was awesome, just the way they wrote it. You're right, it sounds a little more folksy. He's just looking out into nature and really appreciating it. And I think if you've ever been out in the middle of nowhere and just taking a looking around, taking in the silence and just the beauty of what's around you, I think this song is perfect for that. And so I think it's just really well written, really well sung. And again, the whole album's worth checking out, but it's definitely has a much stronger country tone than this opening track.
yes, it exactly reminded me of that, of being, for me, I always just think about the time I went camping in Colorado and just being out on the side of the mountain. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I think he does exactly that. He paints a really nice picture of being out in the country, being by the mountains. He also mentions a bottle of Blanton, which is one of my favorite bourbons. It's a really good bottle of bourbon. I haven't had one in a really long time, but that was always a go-to of mine in business school. It's really good. So I loved that little nod to that. Because it's like, yeah, it's that just adds to the perceived warmth, of being out in a campfire. Often people drink and camp. I think that those two things have a lot of overlap. That Venn diagram.
There is a lot of overlap there, yes.
But yeah, it's a really beautiful song, and like I said, it falls more folksy for me, and I don't know, I was just comforted by it. Oddly enough, I was comforted by this song.
Nice. All right, your next pick. You go with we take a very hard right turn from folksy to Unholy by Sam Smith and Kim Petras.
Yes, I wrote here, this is a completely different song from your pick. I mean, I said I couldn't think of a more opposite direction than what I just listened to come to this song. You go from the wholesomeness of nature and camping and that sound to what Sam Smith and Kim Petras have put together on this one, which is like all about a guy like visiting I think basically a sex club based off of the music video and the lyrics.
Yeah, it's less comforting, I would say, than the previous track.
Right. Far less comforting. It's such an imposing like sound. I think that they do such a good job of putting together this track where the lyrics really do match the sound. It's like menacing in a way, like, this guy is up to no good. He's literally doing something unholy, which is such a great adjective, to describe kind of these acts. Like your mind immediately jumps to all these like perverse, acts and everything. And like he's cheating on his wife. He's left his kids behind. All this kind of stuff. The music video is really fun. It's very like out there and very carnival-esque in a way. So you should check that out if you're curious. This is one of those music videos where I don't even think it's that controversial today. Like again, we talked about tame music videos back in the day.
Yes.
But I think if you played this back in the day, like let's say like in the 70s or 80s or even earlier, people's minds would be blown. But today we're like, yeah, that's cool. That looks great.
Yeah, you think about something like Madonna's Justify My Love, right? Which was a really controversial song and video and all of that. And then, I mean, this is like a level up from that, really, right? And I thought it was impressive because it's so different than what I have in my mind for Sam Smith. And so it was interesting reading about this song because he said it was like a very freeing experience, like recording this song. And I could see that because, again, I'm kind of used to him writing sort of he's got an amazing voice and just sort of the slower kind of love song type things where he really shows off his range. And so this was kind of impressive to put something like this together that was just so very different than what I'm used to. So, but I love the word you used, imposing. I was like, that's a good way to describe the beat here.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Excuse me, I actually believe his preferred pronouns are they. So they were saying yeah, all good, all good. They were saying in an interview with Zane Lowe that I was watching, they talked about that, like feeling free. They recorded it in Jamaica, which is a pretty cool place to go and put together, a single.
And it's hard not to feel
great.
Free when you're in Jamaica, right?
I agree. But yes, a great song overall and one that I've had on repeat for quite some time now. But let's move forward to track 4, your next pick, and it is Francesca by Weezer.
Yeah, we had to check back in with our friends Weezer. They've been doing the season EPs all year long, so they did spring, summer, fall, and winter. And this one's off the fall album. And, we joke about the Weezer filter being put on everything, so it sounds just like Weezer, right? But I've really enjoyed all the work they've put out this year on these little EPs that they've been doing. This one's really cool because Rivers Cuomo decided to write a song from the perspective of Napoleon writing to Josephine and thinking about how maybe they've kind of lost this paradise that they were trying to build up. And it's really kind of funny when you think about that and listen to the song. As it is, it's just a really enjoyable kind of love song. And definitely worth a listen, but just a classic Weezer track.
It is. It is definitely a classic Weezer track. It has that sound. I was laughing whenever I discovered that it is quite literally written about, as you said, Napoleon and Josephine.
Yes.
Because, at first pass, like hearing the words Waterloo in a song, like we use Waterloo as, like a metaphor for like a disaster and something going wrong. So I thought like, oh yeah, like he could just be writing about a metaphor of Waterloo. But it's like, nope, it's quite literally that. And that's why the song also has like little French words thrown in.
Yeah.
I love the lines like, I'm literally dying, victim of a coup. Like it's quite literally about Napoleon writing to Josephine. So I loved that. I don't know why it's on the autumn mix for them. I'm curious about why they chose that to go on the autumn mix.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. Maybe it's like autumn is a time to reflect on your life or something. Maybe. Perhaps.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting when all 4 come out to kind of put them next to each other to see how they are different or the same or kind of follow the seasons. I think that'll be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, your next pick, you went with Liftoff by Labyrinth.
Yeah, so this is coming off of a new album coming out soon by Labyrinth called Ends and Begins. I think, funny enough, this song is featured in a Cadillac commercial, which is how I was first introduced to it, and started digging around and was like, oh, right, he does have new music coming out. So Labyrinth, as I've mentioned before in the show, was introduced to me through the show Euphoria. And I think all of his tracks have kind of this sound. Always does like a great job of kind of mixing in this case, like an organ element to it, which again makes it just sound very large and looming. You get the sense of like a liftoff coming soon. I think it works really well, like with Interstellar and the music, the soundtrack to Interstellar by, why am I blanking? I love it. Is that Hans Zimmer, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like how much he like just slams on the organ. It's as if someone's just falling on top of an organ. It's some of those tracks, which now we just liken to space, I guess. So I really like that song. I'm just more excited that there's new music coming out from Labyrinth, and curious to hear the full album whenever it comes out.
So I haven't watched the show Euphoria, so I'm not as familiar with his music. And when I was listening to this, I kept thinking, does this guy have sort of a Latin background or influence? Like there was a little bit of a Latin feel to this song, I felt like. And turns out I was completely wrong. But I still enjoyed the track. Like it wasn't a negative thing, but it was just interesting, like the way I heard it. And then when I kind of dug in and did some research, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I was mishearing that. But either way, it's a great song. Totally with you. He also there's a mention in here of King T'Challa. From Black Panther, which is appropriate because the new Black Panther movie is is coming out, or actually may be out by the time this recording's released.
Right, yes. I know, and I was really tempted to put the new Rihanna song on there, speaking of Black
I
Panther,
thought about
because it's
that too.
excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. So a notable mention here of the new Rihanna song. Be sure to listen to that if you haven't already heard it. But in the meantime, let's move on to your next pick, track 6, and it is I'm in Love with You by the 1975.
Yeah, so the 1975 is one of these bands that I've heard of, and turns out they've been around for 20 years, which I was shocked to read. I was like, wait a minute, I feel like they just are brand new, but they've been around for a while, and I've never like dug into their music. So they had a new album come out, and I love the title of it. It's called Being Funny in a Foreign Language, which I think is just a great album title. And decided to dig into it, and I was like, these guys are great. And it turns out they're in that British pop genre that I normally love. So I'm like, okay, this is great. This is right up my alley. But I picked this one. It's just, I mean, there's not a whole lot to the lyrics beyond like I'm in love with you. I mean, it's a really simple poppy love song, but I just thought it was really good. And I'm kind of looking forward now to dig into more of their back catalog, because turns out they've got 20 years of music that I've completely ignored up to this point.
I'm so glad that was your experience too, because that's exactly mine. I wrote and I was thinking about it. The 1975 is a band I feel that I completely missed the boat on, and now I need to catch up to their sound. Because I hear a lot about them, but for whatever reason, I've just never sat down to like really listen to them. I really enjoyed this song. It's interesting. I couldn't place it if it sounded more 80s or like 90s boy band-ish. I think that the topic of this song is why it kind of has that light and popish and like joyful sound. But you're right. It's like a very nice, pleasant song. I really enjoyed listening to it, and I would love to get more into the 1975. We might need to have someone put together an intro to them for us.
Oh, yes.
So that we can dig in and kind of understand their 20 years of music a little bit better.
Yeah, we need a 1975 super fan to come out. But yeah, I agree with you. I felt it was more 80s. I was like, these guys are called the 1975, but this sounds straight out of 1985.
Yes.
All right. Well, they sounded more 80s, but this band, of course, everyone knows from the 90s, but they've got new music. This is Beguiled by Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, again, like a completely different turn from the previous song. It's funny how we kind of whiplash on this mix, but Smashing Pumpkins has a new album coming out called Atum, A-T-U-M. And this is just like that super hard rock sound that I love from Smashing Pumpkins. Like it is, they're kind of going back to that very grungy hard rock sound here. Very excited that they're making new music. I think, the lyrics in this song in particular kind of remind me of some of A Perfect Circle's like heavier rock music. So with Maynard, at the lead there from Tool. And yeah, I just think it's like a great kind of angry rock song. I've been enjoying it whenever I just need to be like amped up, or if I'm feeling kind of like I've got too much energy, I need to burn it. I just put my headphones on, I crank this, and can really rock out to it. There's this part where like the guitar is like struck a few times right leading into the second verse that just sounds so good turned up. So yeah, in general, just an amazing rock song that I'm, again, super excited that Smashing Pumpkins is releasing new music. I can't wait for this full album.
I wrote this was probably the most surprising track of your picks, because you're right. Based on like the more recent Smashing Pumpkins stuff, it was just, it almost took on a softer tone from the stuff of in the 90s when they first came out and they were just like hardcore like rock band, right? And so this started up, and I like had to kind of look down to be like, wait a minute, what am I listening to? I was like, whoa, this sounds like the old Smashing Pumpkins. Not old, I mean, it's definitely new. It's definitely a newer sound to it, but more like that harder rock stuff, like you said. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one just because of that. I love the energy that came with it, and I don't know, I've listened to it a few times on this mix. I was like, man, this is well done. I'm interested because this new album is kind of, at least by the title, indicates it's some sort of rock opera. So I kind of want to get into the full album to see how this song fits into the bigger scheme there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'll be really interesting. All right, but let's move on to the next pick, track 8. And I'm really excited about this one in particular to talk through. So it is Empty Stomachs and Bloodshot Eyes by Jake Swamp and The Pine.
Okay, so we've talked about this before. One of the cool things that has happened to us, having this podcast is we will just get people reaching out and telling us, "Hey, this artist has a new album coming out," or "This artist has a new album coming out," and that's how we discovered this one. So they reached out, and a little spoiler alert. Okay, we may be having someone from Jake Swamp and the Pine on the show very soon. So if you like this track, you're going to get to know this band pretty well here in the coming weeks. So yeah, and when we get those submissions, so if there's any like PR people listening, we listen to all of them, or at least I do, right? Like it's always like, all right, let me check this out, see what it is. And I just thought this was great. This was a really good song, kind of folksy singer-songwriter type of song. And the feel of it is just kind of reminiscing back to when you were younger and, in high school or college. Like they talk about staying up all night, and that's where the title comes from. Like, because you wait, in the morning you've got, empty stomachs and bloodshot eyes. And I just thought this was a really well-written song. I love the title. And then getting into their whole catalog, I thought they had a lot of cool stuff too. So really looking forward to having them on the show.
Yeah, I hope that recording date works out, and we're able to talk to them more. But you're right. Like I was immediately hooked from the opening sound of this song. I think it's it's kind of a happy sounding one. I just love the mood. And yes, like definitely have, a lot of memories of like rolling into a day where you're starving, you're tired, and you're expected to take like 6 hours worth of finals or something like that. Like it can be rough. But...
Or you have literally nothing to do the next day. So it's like, let's just stay up all night. I don't know. What do you have to do? What do you have to wake up for?
Right. But yeah, it's so fun. I've also really loved that about this podcast that, we get reached out by PR agencies and repping musicians. And that's been such a gift. It's awesome to be introduced to all kinds of new music, big and small.
All right, so we go small on that one. Let's go big with track 9. Your pick was Eddie by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, another band that needs our help. They have, just like Taylor, we're getting it all wrong. These are the small bands. But yes, Eddie by Red Hot Chili Peppers. They've released 2 albums this year, which is amazing. So they like reformed the, one of the OG groups, and have just been really busy releasing new music. This one in particular is dedicated to Eddie Van Halen. And so it's, inspired by him and kind of writes about his experience in music. And so the lyrics really talk from his point of view. So it's funny, we had one kind of written from Napoleon, and this one's written from Eddie Van Halen's point of view. The opening guitar notes, I think, is quite literally the song By the Way sped up. I think it's the exact same opening chords to the song By the Way by Red Hot Chili Peppers. If you played that one and then played this one, you'll see what I'm talking about. So that was like an immediate kind of attention grabber. I'm sure they did that on purpose. I think, yeah, the guitar solo here, of course, it has to have like a shredding, amazing guitar solo because it's a song about Eddie Van Halen. And so how could it not? But what I love about this one in particular is that there's like the solo, but then it just kind of continues and bleeds into the last verse and then kind of goes into the outro of the song. So it never really ends, even as the song like moves forward. And I just think that is so cool. And the way it plays out is just like a scorching like way of kind of going out on that song. So really, really have loved listening to this one off of their most recent album.
And the song is like 6.5 minutes long or something like that.
Yeah,
it's a really long song.
Yes.
So I started listening to this, again, not knowing anything about it beyond the title, and it's Red Hot Chili Peppers. So you're right. First beginning chords immediately made me think of Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? So I think you're right about sort of that chord similarity. But then as the song goes on, when it got to the guitar solo, I was like, this is awesome, right? And I still hadn't made the connection with Eddie Van Halen. And then, like, as he's playing, it was just actually the solo that made me start thinking a little bit of Eddie Van Halen. And then they go back to the lyrics, and, they kind of make it really obvious after a while, even referencing, like, David Lee Roth. And so I was like, oh, my God, this is incredible, right? Like, what it does. And you're right, that guitar solo never really stops. It just kind of lingers on as they finish out the song, which I thought was such a cool effect as well. And I guess Flea wrote this like right after Eddie Van Halen passed away. He was kind of inspired to write this, and then everyone sort of contributed their parts thereafter. But it was Yeah, I just thought it was a really good song, really good offering by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, and the rest of the album is excellent. So definitely check it out. It's really good. I've listened to it a couple of times now, start to finish. So good stuff. All right, home stretch here, track 10. Again, a lot of whiplash on this track. This one is really funny. This is STFU featuring Rick Nielsen by Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, Todd Rundgren has been around forever. He writes. There's so many eclectic songs by him. One, they sound very like he really runs the gamut. And on this new album, he does a ton of collaborations, and there's a ton of different music on this. And I picked this song, one because I love the sound of it, I love the energy, but then just the message of it, the shut the F up kind of chorus, and they actually say the word, okay? So just little warning there if you're going to play the song with your kids in the car, right? But I don't know, it hit me at the perfect time because, Samara, I don't know about you, but here in Texas, I've been getting a ton of mail, a ton of robocalls, and a ton of text messages around these midterm elections, right? I'm not trying to downplay voting, okay? That's not the point here, right? But sometimes I just want all these politicians to shut the F up, okay? And if I get one more text saying we need just $10 to put so-and-so candidate over the top, like, I'm not giving you any money, okay?
I feel your pain. I'm getting inundated with, it's like every ad between, like if you watch live TV, every ad between, like in the commercial break is a political ad. And it's whiplash. It's too much. It's like both parties just like hitting you over the head with their messaging about, no, that person's the worst. And they're like, no, this person's the worst. And you're like, okay, I get it. Everyone's the worst.
Yeah, it seems like whatever happens on election day, if you just line these ads up together, whatever happens, the world's going to end.
Right.
Because that's essentially the prediction that has been laid out by both parties, is that if so-and-so wins this election, we're done. And if so-and-so wins the election, we're done. Well,
we're done.
I'm kind of coming to the same conclusion here, guys.
But you know what? Get out there, rock the vote. It's important to vote. It really is. Local election, state election, federal, do it all. Have fun with it. It's good. It's a good thing. But you're right. Like this song is a great anthem for that. And I think it's also kind of clever because to the point of, you know, like no matter what, people will just say that the world is ending. I think you could point this at anyone. Like you could listen to this song and be like, oh yeah, this is definitely about that party or that politician or that, you know, media personality. And then the other person would listen to like, no, this is definitely about this other person. Like, how could it not be? So I think that is really cleverly done where it's just a universal, you know, shut the F up and you can point it at whoever you want
That's
to
right.
and feel good about it.
So whatever side, whatever party you're on, I mean, you could crank this up and just think about the person you want to shut the F up, okay?
Exactly.
All right, track 11, you've got Electrify My Love by Mondo Cosmo.
Yeah, so this is actually new music that came out way earlier this year, back in April. But I discovered it and I was like, okay, I'm going to break the rules a little bit. It didn't just come out, but it is so worth putting on a mix. I know you're shaking your head. The listeners can't see that. You're so disappointed. But you know what? This opens up the album. The album is called This Is for the Barbarians, which is another great album title. And it's just one of these songs that just immediately puts me in a good mood. It's one of these like joyful songs. I think like the lyrics, the sound effects that are kind of thrown in here are whimsical in nature. Like, you know, he's got this Bob Dylan sound, I believe. And I read like an editor's note on his music and they mentioned Bob Dylan too. I don't know if he likens himself as the Bob Dylan of Gen X or if the writer, you know, speaking of his music, kind of put that label on him. But I think it works because really every now and then when he's singing lines, you do hear that influence. And the whole album, again, is really, really good start to finish. He covers a lot of topics and a lot of like recent events and things that like we're all dealing with as people. So really, really enjoyed this. Worth a shout out, you know, coming in late in the year. I had to throw it in on a new music mix.
Yeah, I read that he actually wrote the song to be the first track on that album, which I really appreciate that intentionality. Like, I want to write something that's going to open an album. I feel like nowadays it's more about, just getting the single out there and getting a lot of listens to the one song. So I like when people sort of form an album around a song. So I appreciate that. And yeah, this one, I love how it just kind of builds up and then the backup singers come in and it really is kind of beautiful. Like when they get to the chorus and as the song progresses, like it's a really great song. So I'm really glad, even though you broke the rules, that you included it on this mix.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'll pay penance for that. Well, if actually I'll redeem the penance I need to pay because I had to listen to Bruce Springsteen on a new music mix, which I never thought was going to happen. But here we are, and it is appropriately called "Don't Play That Song" by Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, so Bruce Springsteen has a new album this month called "Only the Strong Survive," and it's a cover album. He just is putting out. He's redone all these Motown and soul hits from the past. And the thing I think is really cool about that is that you can listen to this album, then kind of do a deep dive into some Motown and soul artists that maybe you forgot or maybe you never knew. And so it's a great way to kind of get you into some older music that is pretty fantastic. But this one is a song that was originally done by Ben E. King and then later kind of famously done by Aretha Franklin. The gist of the song is simply, someone, the main character in the song is asking a DJ essentially not to play that song because it reminds him of like heartache. And so it's just, I think it speaks to, in that era, there were so many cleverly written songs. I think that's what I love so much about old, Motown and R&B songs. And Bruce does a really good job of it here. And I'm really looking forward to this album when it comes out.
Yeah, I think I love that. And I really loved the lyrics, and it's cool that he's doing a cover album because why wouldn't he? I feel like he could do just about anything. He could cover like Rage Against the Machine, and it'd probably be really interesting. When you're worth almost $1 billion and you're kind of like semi-retired, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? No, this is really good. It's a great song. I really enjoyed the lyrics. I love kind of the spin he puts on it. We talk about the Weezer sound. Like this is definitely like the Bruce sound, I think, in effect. So it works really well. But I was just very much like laughing that I always thought I was safe from a track by him on new music, but here we are.
Yeah, I somehow snuck on Bruce Springsteen with a cover song onto a new music mix. But hey, we're all breaking rules, I guess. All right, well, there you have it. Another super awesome mix for your collection. This time, some new music. And like we said, this is going to be a monthly edition for us. So really excited about that going forward. But we've got plenty of other mixes to work on. So we'll get to work there. And for Samra, this is Matt, and we'll see you next time. Super Awesome Mix is brought to you by DLM. Make shopping easy with DLM, the one-stop shop for all your casual clothing needs. Shop DLMSupplyCo.com and enter the promo code AWESOME at checkout to save 15% off your first purchase. That's DLMSupplyCo.com.